You mentioned political correctness about Muslims. What the criticism of you is that you are playing on fears that people have.
No,
and
I'm
you're
playing
stoking.
on common sense. No, I'm not playing on fears. I don't want to play on fears. I understand the whole world, and I understand.
Over a decade now of research in political psychology consistently shows that how physically threatened or fearful a person feels is a key factor, although clearly not the only one, in whether he or she holds conservative or liberal attitudes. Conservatives, it turns out, react more strongly to physical threat than liberals do. In fact, their greater concern with physical safety seems to be determined early in life. In one University of California study, the more fear a 4-year-old showed in a laboratory situation, the more conservative his or her political attitudes were found to be 20 years later. Brain imaging studies have even shown that the fear center of the brain, the amygdala, is actually larger in conservatives than in liberals.
What right-wing rhetoric does when it reaches that violent pitch is it undermines that particular conversation such that the focus of political debate becomes increasingly hamstrung by fear, and the ability of citizens to engage in the basic act of civics becomes gummed up. That conversation breaks down.
Knoxville pastor Chris Bice agrees.
When you blame all your problems on some minority group, then everyone else is exonerated. We exonerate ourselves. We don't have to look at ourselves to see what sort of ways we contribute to the problems of the world. We don't have to examine ourselves to see what we're doing that is helping to create the problems that we're so concerned about.
In other words, Bice says, angry talk radio rhetoric simply sets up scapegoats for society's problems. And ever since Jim David Adkison walked into his church and opened fire, he can't help but wonder whether that might lead to more violence.
"21-year-old Dylan Roth is in custody, caught in North Carolina. Roth is suspected of killing 9 people inside the historic Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina. Just after 8 p.m. Wednesday night, Roth entered the church. He was invited to join a Bible study group.
He sat next to my cousin, Reverend Clemente Pinckney, throughout the entire Bible study.
Witnesses told police that around 9 p.m., Roth stood up and said that he was there to shoot black people. He allegedly then took out his handgun and opened fire, killing 9.
The Council of Conservative Citizens believes whites are under attack, that whites need to wake up before the race is destroyed. On its website, it lists black-on-white crimes it says go unreported. Points of view almost identical to the so-called manifesto and reasoning on the website owned by the Charleston shooter, justifying an attack on black people praying in a church.
Over this weekend, we learned that the shooter in Charleston, South Carolina last week got his ideas from this Council of Conservative Citizens. He credited them directly with inspiring his attempt to start a race war with this mass murder in a Charleston church.
The federal grand jury has handed down an indictment against a Las Vegas man who made threats against President Obama and members of Congress. He posted this on his Facebook page. This is Tyrone Paul Pontio of Las Vegas. "I think we all need to get our guns and shoot all of these out-of-control congressmen and senators and Obama. Any survivors, hang them. Then try their dead bodies for high treason. Then, after they hang in the streets for a week, run over them. Then to a tree chipper to finish the job. Who has the nuts with me to start World War III right here in Vegas and let it pour all over this fucking globe of ours?"
Investigators are learning more about John Russell Hauser, the man who opened fire in a movie theater Thursday night, killing 2 and wounding 9 before killing himself. The portrait of Hauser that's emerging? An angry and mentally disturbed man who had a swastika outside his business and praised Hitler on extremist websites.
A law enforcement source familiar with the investigation tells CBS News Hauser had been staying at a nearby motel for at least a month. They found writings in his room that said he wanted to target law enforcement, government agencies, abortion clinics, and anyone else will do. He had even written the name of the movie and showtime he planned to attack.
Investigators say Chris Harper Mercer's arsenal of more than a dozen weapons included a Smith & Wesson, Taurus .40 caliber pistol, Glock 19, and a rifle. All were purchased legally. He also had the type of steel-plated body armor worn by police. Investigators have discovered what they are calling a manifesto. Typed on a computer and printed, sources say the multi-page rant was philosophical, at times racist, and authored by someone who was mad at the world. The writer lamented not having a girlfriend and talked about going out in a blaze of glory. Mercer, who family says was born in the United Kingdom, moved to the U.S. as a young boy. He lived in Torrance, California with his mother before moving to an apartment less than 10 minutes away from the community college. In 2008, Mercer enlisted in the Army, but he was discharged after a month for failing to meet Army standards.
Federal agents have busted a plot by Virginia white supremacists to shoot up black churches in an effort to start a race war. The three individuals that have been arrested include Robert Doyle, Charles Halderman, and also Ronald Beasley Cheney. Now, according to court documents, the FBI claims that Robert Doyle, Ronald Beasley Cheney, and Charles Halderman were planning the shooting sprees in addition to plotting to kill a local jewelry dealer, rob an armored car, and kill and rob an Oklahoma gun dealer. The trio were going to use the proceeds from their robberies to purchase property and weapons so they could begin training for the race war.
On November 19th, prosecutors say Alan Lance Sarcella, on your left, and another man whose face we are not showing because he has not been charged, made a video on their way to the 4th Precinct protests.
They're locked and loaded.
The two men made racially charged statements about the protesters.
A little reverse cultural enriching. We're going to make the fire rise. The fire rises.
Well, basically what he's saying is we're just going to go have ourselves a little look-see in this.
A little look-see.
The video ends with this sign out.
We'll catch you all later. Stay white.
Court documents say the driver decided not to come back on November 23rd because he felt it would be too dangerous. Shortly after the 5 protesters were shot on November 23rd, prosecutors say Lance Sarcella called the driver and told him that he had just shot 5 people. Investigators say Sarcella also admitted he had shot the 5 protesters to a friend of his who is a Mankato police officer. Sarcella features this early Confederate flag on his Facebook page and, according to prosecutors, had racist images on his phone. Hennepin County Attorney Mike Freeman says it's clear the shootings were racially motivated.
The defendants' own statements, their video, show that these are sick people.
Freeman was challenged at a news conference by a community member who said the assault and riot charges are not enough.
I think it should be first-degree intentional attempted murder.
The other 3 men are charged with 1 count each of second-degree riot with a dangerous weapon, and they could face up to 3 years in prison.
After the ugliness in Alabama when Trump supporters beat up a black protester, Trump decided that he was going to tweet out something that shows the real problem is black people. So he tweeted out this, USA Crime Statistics 2015. Year's not over. I don't know where they compile that from. We'll get to that in a second. It has a black guy holding a gun sideways with a mask on. And it says blacks killed by whites, 2%, blacks killed by police, 1%, whites killed by police, 3%, whites killed by whites, 16%, whites killed by blacks, 81%, blacks killed by blacks, 97%. Okay. Here's a couple of problems with that. It is entirely made up. For Trump, he goes, oh yeah, of course. It's all the blacks killing us, man. The real problem is blacks. They kill the black people, they kill the white people. I'm going to retweet that, right? So that statistic was from the non-existent, and it says it on the bottom, Crime Statistics Bureau, San Francisco. No such organization exists.
Planned Parenthood is blaming the, quote, hateful speech of conservative lawmakers and Republican presidential candidates for provoking Friday's deadly shooting at a Colorado clinic. They released a statement saying, we are grateful for the enormous outpouring of support from people all across the country who are appalled by this act of violence and want to see an end to the hateful rhetoric that fueled it.
As regards Planned Parenthood, anyone who has watched this videotape, I dare
Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama to watch these tapes. Watch a fully formed fetus on the table, its heart beating, its legs kicking, while someone says we have to keep it alive to harvest its brain. This is about the character of our nation. And if we will not stand up and force President Obama to veto this bill, shame on us.
I think there has been some vicious rhetoric on the left, blaming those who are pro-life.
Protect babies. There is no. Let's let it all come out. Truth. Because you added the babies that are supposed to be aborted that day. Because you add that to the list. Seal the truth, huh? But also kill the babies. That's what Planned Parenthood does.
It's so typical of the left to immediately begin demonizing a messenger because they don't agree with the message.
A fully formed fetus on the table, its heart beating, its legs kicking.
First of all, do you acknowledge what every fact checker has found, that as horrific as that scene is, it was only described on the video by someone who claimed to have seen it. There is no actual footage of the incident that you just mentioned.
No, I don't accept that at all.
This morning, a shootout between the armed occupiers of the Federal Wildlife Refuge in rural Oregon and police, including the FBI, has left one occupier dead and another wounded. Group leader Ammon Bundy and his brother were arrested in the shootout and could be seen handcuffed on the road. The armed militia seized control of this National Wildlife Refuge in early January, and they have occupied it ever since. Group spokesman Lavoy Finicum was killed in the shootout during a traffic stop along a highway outside the compound. Authorities said at least 8 were arrested, including an online blogger who supported the group.
Women and children need to get out of there right now.
And John Ritzheimer, famous for his online postings about being willing to risk everything in the standoff.
Although nobody here will fire that first shot.
The standoff, which was in its 24th day, had been mostly peaceful until now. But townspeople and Oregon's governor had expressed frustration the occupation had been allowed to continue so long.
He was tired of America and will begin killing. That's what Metro Police reveal about Bryce Cuellar, according to an arrest report. Cuellar is in jail now and police have his guns.
On July 2nd, the international police organization Interpol notified Metro about a suspicious and threatening video Cuellar posted on YouTube the day before. The video was already taken down. Metro's counterterrorism section immediately recognized Cuellar in the 15-minute video because he's had numerous arrests in the past 3 years. Metro will not release his mugshot, but neighbors confirm this is his photo from his Facebook page. According to the police report, Cuellar is seen holding up 2 rifles. He says several times he is going to kill people and he cannot wait to use the rifle in a manner in which the founding fathers intended. He's facing 3 charges, including making threats of terrorism, conspiracy to commit a crime, and attempting to destroy evidence.
He said he's going to use his rifles to protect himself from tyrants and Satanists. He said at the right time he will kill some Satanists. In fact, he repeated that over and over. He's going to kill Satanists. He never actually defined Satanists, but we have some indication in some of his other speech on the video. He said that those who live by the sword will die by the sword. And he said, then he expressed why. He said, because you want to murder people. And then he mentioned FEMA concentration camps, and people want to do him harm. One could view his statements as suggesting self-defense. Unfortunately, though, he goes on further and expresses great profanity against towards gays and lesbians, and has slurs towards gays and lesbians. And one could also ascribe to his video that he's including gays and lesbians within his broad definition of Satanists, although that's not entirely clear. He says he's done with this earth. He's ready to pull the trigger. He says, "This is not the America that the founding fathers gave us." And then he complains, and please excuse my language, but repeating what he says, that faggots, lesbians, and homosexuals run this country, and they want your guns. And then he says, he looks into the camera and then tells his followers, "Fight back, you effing cowards." Defendant engaged in offensive, hateful speech. He deserves to be punished, all right? But he's not a domestic terrorist, and the punishment must be commensurate with the degree of culpability and not inflated due to the offensiveness of the content of the speech. For these reasons, the court accepts the recommendation of P&P. Defendant is adjudicated guilty of count 1, sentenced to 19 to 48 months. Nevada Department of Corrections. The court puts the defendant on probation for an indeterminate term not to exceed 4 years. Counts 2 and 3 are dismissed.
We problem in this country, it's called Muslims. We know our current president is one. Right. You know he's not even an American.
We need this
birth
question.
certificates,
This
man.
question.
But anyway, we have training camps growing where they want to kill us.
Mm-hmm.
That's my question. When can we get rid of
We're
them?
going to be looking at a lot of different things. And, you know, a lot of people are saying that, and a lot of people are saying that bad things are happening out there. We're going to be looking at that and plenty of other things.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what the hell is going on. It's going to get worse and worse. You're going to have more World Trade Centers. It's going to get worse and worse, folks. Until we are able to determine and understand this problem and the dangerous threat it poses, our country cannot be the victim of horrendous attacks by people that believe only in jihad. These are people only believe in jihad. They don't want our system. They don't want our system. And have no sense of reason or respect for human life. They have no respect for human life.
Do you think Islam is at war with the West?
I think Islam hates us. There's something there that there's a tremendous hatred there. There's a tremendous hatred. We have to get to the bottom of it. There is an unbelievable hatred of us.
I guess the question is there a war between the West and radical Islam, or is there a war between the West and Islam
It's
itself?
radical, but it's very hard to define. It's very hard to separate because you don't know who's who.
Men apparently tied to a right-wing militia group had been planning to blow up a predominantly Somali housing complex on the day after the election. Their plot would bring about a bloodbath that was the only fucking way this country is ever going to get turned around, according to the FBI affidavit. One of the men appears to have been a Donald Trump supporter, according to screenshots of the men's social media postings. He spread a number of pro-Trump memes, and the others, it seems, had a penchant for sharing anti-Muslim hate memes and right-wing conspiracy theories. The only good Muslim is a dead Muslim. If you're a Muslim, I'm going to enjoy shooting you in the head. The militiamen at one point discussed shooting Muslim Somalis one by one, kicking down the doors of each of their apartments, quoted as saying, "If you start using your bow on them cockroaches, make sure you dip them in pig's blood before you shoot them." Not only did they call them cockroaches, but also raghead bitches, they were quoted as saying. They also proposed an Orlando-style shootout at the local Muslim refugee center, according to the affidavit, before settling on a plot to place 4 vehicles packed with explosives at each corner of the Somali housing complex's parking lot in order to create a big explosion. They also suggested targeting mosques, with one quoted as saying, "Yeah, during prayer time."
Attorneys for President Donald Trump's supporter, who was convicted in a domestic terrorism plot aimed at slaughtering Muslim refugees, asked the federal judge to factor in the backdrop of Trump's campaign rhetoric when deciding their client's sentence. So this is apparently dealing the Trump card. Now we're going to go to James Pratt and Michael Schultz. That's this particular gentleman's attorney. And here's what they had to say in what they filed. They said 2016 was lit. The court cannot ignore the circumstance of one of the most rhetorically mold-breaking, violent, awful, hateful, and contentious presidential elections in modern history, driven in large measure by the rhetorical China shop bull who is now our president. In other words, Trump kept saying violent things, which egged on some of his early and avid supporters to do violent things. His knowledge of the Quran, his attorneys wrote, came directly from the internet and conservative talk show hosts such as Sean Hannity and Michael Savage. Patrick himself had never read the Quran, nor had he participated in a comparative study of any religion.
What about civilian casualties? What about the fact that we're targeting them and people are very concerned about collateral damage?
I would do my best, absolute best, but we're fighting a very politically correct war.
Yeah.
Well, we see
and
that
the
happening
other
in
thing
Ramadi.
is with the terrorists, you have to take out their families. When you get these terrorists, you have to take out their families. They care about their lives, don't kid yourself. But they say they don't care about their lives. You have to take out their families.
Those wives knew exactly what was happening.
You mentioned the families, going after the families. What does that mean? How
Well,
would
I
that
would
work?
go after, well, at least I would certainly go after the wives who absolutely knew what was happening. And I guess your definition of what I do, I'm going to leave that to your imagination.
We are going to make this decision now. The Fox News decision desk has called Pennsylvania for Donald Trump. This means that Donald Trump will be the 45th president of the United States.
Beginning on January 20th of 2017, safety will be restored. The most basic duty of government is to defend the lives of its own citizens. Any government that fails to do so is a government unworthy to lead.
Under arrest in Washington, 28-year-old Edgar Welch, accused of firing an assault weapon inside the Comet Ping Pong pizza restaurant. Welch allegedly told police he came to investigate Pizzagate, an internet rumor alleging a Clinton campaign child sex ring. The Pizzagate conspiracy began with the Clinton WikiLeaks and an email stolen from campaign chief John Podesta about a fundraiser involving the restaurant. Users of the anonymous online message board 4chan, known for rogue political discussion, suggested without any proof whatsoever that the word pizza was code for child sex trafficking at the restaurant. The websites also claim that there's a secret underground tunnel running from the pizza restaurant up the store to the Politics and Prose bookstore to traffic in children. But the bookstore says there is no tunnel. For weeks, the restaurant and bookstore have received dozens of threats each day.
WikiLeaks has come out and linked to sites that are reporting this is about child trafficking. And I went and looked on WikiLeaks, and they're not even denying this. The media is totally ignoring it. Like young children, 6, 7, 8 years old in hot tubs for entertainment. Yeah. I just can't believe this. I can't believe our country is so conquered by evil, Joe. And that we have fallen this low that this has to come out to break them and to break their evil. You will be broken. That's why you're already collapsing. The Bible's the cries of the innocents are very powerful. These people get power off hurting children, but those cries went up. They've been heard. And now it's up to the viewers to take action. And now it's up to the viewers to take action. And now it's up to the viewers to take action. And now it's up to the viewers to take action. And now it's up to the viewers to take action.
Alex Jones here with an important note to our viewing, listening, and reading audiences. I'm going to read to you from a statement that's also posted to Infowars.com that I wrote yesterday. I want our viewers and listeners to know that we regret any negative impact our commentaries may have had on Mr. Alefantis, Comet Ping Pong, or its employees. We apologize to the extent our commentaries could be considered as negative statements about Mr. Alefantis or Comet Ping Pong, and we hope that anyone else involved in commenting on Pizzagate will do the same thing.
Think about this. Who does this to kids?
The the Pizzagate narrative, as least as concerning Mr. Alefantis and Comet Ping Pong, we have subsequently determined was based upon what we now believe was an incorrect narrative. You want the worst stuff? We're going to see video of a toddler getting chopped up.
We have all the proof. We have all the proof.
After less than a week of testimony, a jury has convicted 26-year-old Mark Vincent Perez of federal arson and hate crime charges. He was charged with a January 2017 fire that destroyed the Islamic Center in Victoria. Perez was also found guilty on 2 other counts related to that fire. On the hate crime charge alone, he faces a maximum of 20 years in federal prison. Perez will be sentenced in October.
The FBI says they've arrested a white supremacist who's also a convicted felon after he purchased a gun from an undercover FBI agent in Myrtle Beach and said he wanted to use it in the spirit of Dylan Roof. He's 29-year-old Benjamin McDowell. A criminal complaint filed in federal court says he purchased the gun yesterday for $109. McDowell is charged with being a felon in possession of a firearm. Now, according to the FBI, agents began investigating McDowell after he threatened a synagogue on Facebook back in December. The FBI says McDowell posted statements online praising Dylan Roof, but had not decided on a place or time to conduct an attack. Roof faces the death penalty for killing 9 people at the Mother Emanuel AME Church in Charleston.
He did not deserve a death like this.
Just days after her husband was killed in a possible hate crime, the widow of Srinivas Kuchibhotla said she feared living in the U.S. as an immigrant.
I was always concerned. Are we doing the right thing of staying in the United States of America?
Kuchibhotla, an Indian-born engineer, was shot and killed in a Kansas bar Wednesday night. 51-year-old Adam Puritan allegedly opened fire on Kuchibhotla and his friend Alok Madasani after witnesses say he shouted, "Get out of my country." Police say hours later, at a different bar in Missouri, Puritan told a bartender he had just killed 2 Middle Eastern men. Madasani and another man who was hit survived.
Tonight, disturbing new allegations about the 28-year-old Army vet police say was caught on video moments after stabbing and killing 66-year-old Timothy Kaufman on Monday night. James Jackson facing a judge today, looking angry as prosecutors called the murder a hate crime, most likely an act of terrorism, adding that Jackson considered this murder practice before going to Times Square to kill additional black men.
It's well over 10 years that he has been harboring these feelings of hate towards male blacks.
Police say Jackson traveled from Baltimore to New York, that he had stalked numerous potential victims and was angered by black men mixing with white women. Jackson turned himself in, admitting he's a white supremacist, police say, telling them where to find the 26-inch sword used to kill Kaufman.
As funeral arrangements are made for Deputy Mason Moore, new details are emerging about the 2 suspects, 39-year-old Marshall Barris and his father, 61-year-old Lloyd Barris. According to court documents, the 2 had strong anti-law enforcement views and openly discussed a suicide mission against police. On May 15th, around 11 p.m., Marshall reportedly unsuccessfully tried to get his kids to accompany him and Lloyd on their suicide mission. The 2 left the campground they were at armed with a semi-automatic rifle, 9mm pistol, a shotgun, and a backpack full of ammunition and magazines. Police tracked down Lloyd and Marshall and got into another pursuit before it came to an end in a shootout east of Missoula. Marshall was shot in the head and died at a local hospital. Lloyd was arrested.
A deadly stabbing sparked by hatred.
His race was the cause of his death.
5 months later, prosecutors say soon-to-be college graduate and newly confirmed Army Second Lieutenant Richard Collins III was targeted because of the color of his skin. Murdered days before he finished classes at Bowie State University. Now locked up and waiting for trial, his accused killer, Sean Urbanski. At the time, a University of Maryland student. Investigators say he chose Collins at random while the victim and his friends waited for an Uber to pick them up on the College Park campus. Urbanski has since been linked to an alt-right nation Facebook group.
We have enough evidence to file a hate
crime charge, which is what the grand jury indicted the defendant in this case for today.
Tuesday, State's Attorney Angela Also Brooks would not confirm if Urbanski's Facebook footprint was the evidence behind the hate crime charge.
Free speech or die, Portland. You got no safe place. This is America. Get out if you don't like free speech. Death to the enemies of America. Leave this country if you hate our freedom. Death to Antifa. You call it terrorism, I call it patriotism. You hear me? Die.
This morning, the man police say is responsible for a stabbing spree on a Portland train last Friday, set to be arraigned in court, charged with 2 counts of aggravated murder, 1 count of attempted murder.
One was stabbed in the neck, and the other in the stomach.
According to police, 35-year-old Jeremy Christian targeted 2 young female riders, one wearing a hijab, allegedly taunting them with anti-Muslim rantings.
He told us to go back to Saudi Arabia and to get out of his country.
That's when 3 Good Samaritans stepped in, trying to calm him down, but according to police, Christian stabbed them. 2 of those men, 23-year-old Talishan Namkai Meshe and 53-year-old Army veteran Ricky Best, were killed. The third, 21-year-old Micah Fletcher, surviving, sent home from the hospital overnight, releasing this statement: "I want the Muslim community to know that they have a home here in Portland and are loved. I want to honor the families of those who lost their brave fathers, sons, and brothers." The suspect has a known criminal history, and his extremist views on display last month in this Facebook video.
I'm the dude that promoted shooting anyone that tries to disarm you.
And this morning, the teenage son of Ricky Best remembering his father.
I miss him. We all miss him. He was a hero.
You got a problem with what I'm saying? Fuck all you Christians and Muslims and fucking Jews. Fucking die. Burn you at the stake just like you did my pagan ancestors. Fuck you, die. All you motherfucking taxpayers on here, fucking punk ass bitches. Taxation is theft. I don't pay no taxes. I'm a patriot. I police the police. Fuck you. Oh, it's like we got a Christian or Muslim fucking bus driver. I'll stab you too, bitch. Move forward. I'm about to stab some motherfuckers. Call the police. I dare you. Punk ass bitches moving into my fucking hometown, telling me what I can and cannot say on my motherfucking yellow line, then you want to mace me? Fuck you hoes. Fuck you. Fucking get my black metal show shut down like a bunch of punk ass Christians used to do back in the 90s. Try and picket a fucking Rob Zombie concert. Fuck Antifa. Yeah, fucking Rose City Antifa, a bunch of punk bitches. Yeah, I guess we ain't got no Rose City Antifa on the max, otherwise they fucking whoop whoop. Where you at? Yeah, I didn't think so. Wear your mask, break some windows, that's all you're good for. You ain't revolutionaries.
Breaking news, terror in Charlottesville. Chaos in the streets as a car plows into a crowd of people.
Pools of blood all over the ground, people screaming. I've never seen such a horrific, blatant racist attack in my entire life.
After clashes between white nationalists and counter-protesters, victims thrown in the air, 1 woman dead, others critically wounded.
The suspected driver, 20-year-old James Alex Fields Jr., is behind bars. Authorities say Fields, a registered Republican, lives in Maumee, Ohio, almost 8.5 hours away. His mother telling the AP she knew her son was traveling to Virginia for a rally.
I didn't know it was white supremacists. I thought it had something to do with Trump. Trump's not a supremacist.
This video showing Fields under arrest shortly after the crash. It happened just before 2 p.m. Here, you can see the silver 2010 Dodge Challenger barreling down the hill toward a sea of targets with little time to react, slamming to a stop only after it hit a van and another car. Blocked in, that car shifting in reverse, screeching back down the street to get away.
Shoes all over the ground, pools of blood all over the ground, people screaming.
One person, a 32-year-old woman, left dead. 19 more rushed to the hospital, 5 in critical condition. The destructive aftermath on the street, leaving bystanders searching for their loved ones.
I need my sister!
Others jumping in, carrying those hurt in the collision, desperately searching for help. This following nearly 24 hours of unrest.
White lives matter! White lives matter!
White nationalists stormed the University of Virginia's campus Friday night, protesting plans to remove a statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee. The violence only escalating Saturday, chaos in the streets as demonstrators clashed with counter-protesters. The governor declaring a state of emergency.
There's fighting happening in the streets.
Police using pepper spray. Then the situation taking that deadly turn.
Putting what you're calling the alt-left and white supremacists on the same moral plane.
I'm not putting anybody on a moral plane. What I'm saying is this. You had a group on one side and you had a group on the other, and they came at each other with clubs, and it was vicious, and it was horrible, and it was a horrible thing to watch. But there is another side. There was a group on this side, you can call them the left, or you've just called them the left, that came violently attacking the other group. So you can say what you want, but that's the way it is. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
It was the middle of the night in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska, 200 miles from Omaha, when 26-year-old Taylor Wilson allegedly pulled the emergency brake on Amtrak's California Zephyr train traveling between Sacramento and Chicago. There were 175 passengers on board last October when the train abruptly stopped. Amtrak employees restrained Wilson for an hour until the closest sheriff's deputy could arrive. Wilson had a handgun, ammunition, a mask, knife, scissors, and a tape measure. The FBI now believes he may have been planning a larger attack and is facing terror-related charges for allegedly attempting to wreck, derail, and disable the train. Wilson's cousin told investigators the suspect had expressed an interest in killing black people. His cousin told the FBI Wilson attended the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, where the alt-right clashed with counter-protesters. White supremacist materials were found on Wilson's phone, and when officers searched his Missouri home, they found a hidden closet with a stockpile of ammunition. His family later turned over a bulletproof vest and 15 firearms belonging to Wilson, one modified to be fully automatic.
President Trump went on Twitter and retweeted anti-Muslim videos from a far-right group in Europe to his 43 million-plus Twitter followers. His 3 inflammatory retweets show a young man being beaten and thrown from a rooftop, as well as somebody destroying a Virgin Mary statue. The purpose of the videos clearly to depict Muslims as savages, even though it's not entirely clear that all the people in the videos are Muslim. This one, for example, purports to show a migrant beating up a Dutch boy on crutches, but the Embassy of the Netherlands tweeted to President Trump that the perpetrator here was not a migrant. Quote, "Facts do matter," the embassy said in a tweet. "The perpetrator of this violent act in this video was born and raised in the Netherlands," unquote. So where did President Trump find such vile content, irresponsibly shared, devoid of context, false in at least one case, with the sole purpose, seemingly, of inflaming and encouraging fear and hatred? Well, the original tweets come from this woman, the deputy leader of the extreme right political group Britain First in the UK. Just last year, she was convicted of, quote, religiously aggravated harassment for verbally abusing a Muslim woman on the street. Now, when the leader of the free world promotes the views of such a character, national security experts say that the potential consequences cannot be ignored.
Police say they foiled a plot to carry out a mass shooting at a mosque in Jacksonville. Investigators announced an arrest last night. They say 69-year-old Bernardino Bolate was planning the attack in the Islamic Center of Northeast Florida. He was arrested after he tried to buy a gun silencer from an undercover officer. During taped conversations, police say the man told them of his hatred for Muslims and of his plans for the shooting. Investigators say the man already had enough weapons to carry out the attack.
Samuel Woodward is behind bars this morning, facing charges in the death of Ivy League student Blaze Bernstein after police say DNA evidence led them to arrest the 19-year-old's former high school classmate.
We do believe Mr. Woodward was acting alone.
According to authorities, 20-year-old Woodward was the last person to have seen the pre-med student while he was home for winter break from the University of Pennsylvania. Over Snapchat, the pair planned to hang out and catch up at a local park, according to police. While police haven't revealed a motive, reports of disturbing posts on Woodward's social media accounts have surfaced. On one site called Ask FM, he says if he could learn a new skill, it would be waterboarding. And asked what his attitude toward cannibals was, he says they've got the right idea.
According to a now sealed affidavit obtained by the OC Register, Woodward told investigators that Bernstein kissed him and that the kiss was unwanted, prompting prosecutors to weigh possible hate crime charges. Police say Bernstein vanished on January 2nd while home on break from the University of Pennsylvania. His body found a week later at the park where he was last seen. Authorities allege that Woodward, who outweighed his reported victim by 50 pounds, stabbed him more than 20 times, then buried the body in a shallow grave.
Tonight on social media, we're learning more about Sam Woodward. On one side, he posted a photo of himself by a Confederate flag, defending it as a symbol of Southern pride.
Hello, my name is Nick, and I'm going to be the next school shooter of 2018. My goal is at least 20 people with an AR-15 and a couple tracer rounds. I think I can get it done. Location is Stone Douglas in Parkland, Florida. It's going to be a big event. And when you see me on the news, you all know who I am. You're all going to die. Yeah. Can't wait. I had enough of telling me that I'm an idiot and a dumbass. But in real life, you're all the dumbass. You're all stupid and brainwashed by these political government programs. So here's the plan. I'm gonna go take Uber in the afternoon before 2:40. From there, I'll go onto school campus, walk up the stairs, unload my bags, and get my AR and shoot people down at the main courtyard. I'll wait, and people will die.
Just as the school day was ending, the shooting started. This cell phone video captured the gunfire and the screams of the high school students trapped inside their classrooms.
I'm coming out to the east side with the casualty and ambulance standing by, critical casualty.
The sight of what's become an all too familiar panic of students fleeing hands raised in single file, only matched by the images of armed tactical police racing into the building looking for the gunman. From the air, emergency crews could be seen tending to the wounded, dressing their wounds.
We're coming out with one injured person. He's shot.
Description of the subject is going to be a white male, last seen wearing a burgundy shirt.
The sheriff says the alleged gunman was captured off campus. He was seen surrounded by police, being placed into custody.
There's the guy being put in the back of the car.
Accused shooter Nicholas Cruz is said to have etched Nazi swastikas on his ammo clips. He also tried to shoot out a third-story window to mow down fleeing students, but the hurricane-proof window wouldn't break. He stopped firing only when his weapon jammed.
It's truly disturbing video of the Valentine's Day suspect wielding a BB gun in his backyard. Nicholas Cruz can be seen methodically firing off practice rounds. He is shirtless and wears just boxer shorts and a Make America Great Again cap. After firing at buckets and bottles, he tucks the gun into his waistband and heads inside. A neighbor took the video last October. He says Cruz even pointed the gun at his window.
A closer look at the alleged gunman's social media paints a picture of a young man who was disturbed, angry, and obsessed with guns. 19-year-old Nicholas Cruz had at least 2 Instagram accounts. In the recent one, he goes by the Instagram name Nicholas Cruz Makarov. Makarov being the name of a Russian semi-automatic pistol. He even goes as far as referring to himself as Annihilator. He flaunts his pistols and knives on his Instagram page, sometimes hiding his face behind a black scarf, even wearing a U.S. Army beanie or a Make America Great Again hat. One post contains a photo of a toad he claims to have killed with the caption, "These things killed my dog, so I kill them pretty much."
New revelations today from search warrants now unsealed. The documents show what police found inside the damaged Beaver Dam apartment and garage of food plant chemist Benjamin Morrow. White supremacist materials, exploding targets, a ballistic helmet and vest, long guns, handguns, a large capacity magazine, and explosive material.
Investigators say it remains unclear why Ben Morrow had white supremacist materials in his Beaver Dam apartment and whether he was planning something with his homemade explosives and guns.
The college-educated chemist accidentally blew himself up last month.
An Orange County man accused of hate crimes for threatening members of the Jewish community and possessing a Jewish kill list entered a not guilty plea today in court. A family member told police 26-year-old Nicholas Rose of Irvine had said he wanted to kill people, specifically Jews. Officers found the kill list in Rose's home. They say it included well-known names in the entertainment industry. A pistol was also recovered.
We are following breaking news, a deadly shooting spree at a restaurant in Tennessee. And now the hunt is on for the killer. You're looking live at the Waffle House in Nashville, where the rampage happened early this morning. 4 people are confirmed dead and 4 others are hurt. Police say the gunman pulled up to the parking lot and within minutes started shooting at people. At least 2 people were killed outside of the restaurant. The other victims were shot inside the restaurant. Witnesses say that shooter was naked, only wearing a green jacket, and was armed with an AR-15 rifle. A customer managed to wrestle the gun away, and the suspect took off running.
Last summer, Rankin tried to get into the White House because he wanted to talk to the president, according to police, calling himself a sovereign citizen.
I'm so fed up with you Muslims coming here causing mayhem to Americans, so I'm gonna give you a taste of what you give to us. Listen, you I'm gonna blow up your temple. I have a bomb planted in it right now.
On just one station, disturbing voicemails. Police say this is the man who left them, threatening to blow up this Pembroke Pines mosque on Southwest 196th Avenue.
I'm gonna blow up your temple because you guys are a bunch of lying, murdering pieces of hypocrites. They just want to cause mayhem to America. Have a bomb strapped in there right now.
Cops say on May 5th, Dustin Allen Hughes left 4 threatening voicemails on the answering machine for the mosque, laced with profanity. The voicemail so vulgar you can clearly hear the caller detailing his plan of attack.
I have the bomb detonated in there right now, and I'm gonna set it off.
Hughes did admit to making those threatening calls. Now, if convicted, he could face up to 10 years behind bars and felony charges. His next court date is set for next week.
I guess as a child, I wanted to believe my father was not this monster.
Crystal Kinder says by the time she was 13 years old, she learned unimaginable things about her now estranged father, Ronald Kidwell.
He would trade me.
Kinder says when she was just a baby.
It really started when I was 3 months and ended around when I was 6 months. And it was a daily thing.
She says Kidwell would trade her to drug dealers to support his drug addictions.
My father got away with selling me for child pornography several times. He also got away with selling me for methamphetamines and crack cocaine. Unfortunately, no one would testify against him to put him in prison for it.
Kinder says as a result, her relationship with her father ended.
To this day, my father and I don't speak to him.
Now Ronald Kidwell is charged with murdering Michon Cooper.
He is the true definition of evil.
According to court papers, on July 6, Michon Cooper did not attend a family party. An affidavit Fox 4 Review today reveals Cooper's phone showed that she went to Kidwell's house on July 6th. Kidwell initially claimed Cooper was killed by individuals from Kansas City. Detectives say Kidwell later admitted Cooper's body was in a trash can in his garage.
He told me stories of, look, I'll become friends with someone of color. And I'll make them think I'm their friend. But drugs, and I'm going to end them.
What's more, Kidwell told police when Cooper said she was going to tell everyone that he is HIV positive, she grabbed a knife from her purse and hit him in his hand with it. Kidwell claimed during the fight he got control of the knife and stabbed Cooper in her neck, killing her.
And my heart really does go out to her family and her. He is evil.
Crystal Kinder says her father once took this picture draped in a Confederate flag. She says Kidwell has a swastika tattoo on his left arm and he hates black people. Kinder says 3 years ago, Kidwell threatened to kill her and her little girl.
He told me he would completely disown me and kill me if he ever found out that I spoke to an African American. I pray every day that he suffers for what he did.
It does seem like the America that we know and love doesn't exist anymore. Massive demographic changes have been foisted upon the American people.
And this demographic displacement will continue to march through generation after generation.
And they're changes that none of us ever voted for and most of us don't like. From Virginia to California, we see stark examples of how radically, in some ways, the country has changed.
Can you think of a single majority non-white neighborhood you'd like to live in? Or a majority non-white school you'd want to send your children to? Probably not. And yet, we are turning the whole country majority non-white.
Now, much of this is related to both illegal and, in some cases, legal immigration that, of course, progressives love.
Massive illegal immigration, which is almost entirely non-European, and legal immigration, which is over 90% non-European, means that unless a political sea change occurs, white Americans will ultimately be not only a minority in the nation that our people founded, but a tiny minority.
It's clear that we need a reset on the entire issue of immigration, illegal and legal.
I think that if we could develop a policy not just of cracking down on illegals, but of dramatically reducing immigration for the next half century, that we could basically turn this ship around.
What we have now is a complete farce, and we're all paying for it.
We are not supposed to think very much about the fact that our country is turning into an extension of Mexico with a strong flavor of Africa and Asia.
This is a sure way, over time, to remake and reshape America.
Let's give the power back to the people.
When I say raise your hand, everybody raises their hand.
I'm going to go to Kroger, see if we have any victims.
When emergency responders arrived to the scene of this Kroger grocery store in Louisville, Kentucky Wednesday.
Radio, I got victims down in the lot. Give me EMF.
2 people had already been shot, 69-year-old Marie Stollard and 67-year-old Vicki Lee Jones. One eyewitness said the alleged gunman, Gregory Allen Bush, told a shopper who pleaded for his life, "I won't shoot you. Whites don't shoot whites." Today, a federal prosecutor said the shooting is now being investigated as a possible hate crime. Police say they have surveillance video of Bush appearing to try to gain entry into a predominantly black church just minutes before the grocery store shooting. That idea stoking fears that he may have tried to carry out a shooting like the one in Charleston, South Carolina in 2015 that left 9 people dead. Bush had a criminal history that included domestic violence. In a police report, his ex-wife alleged that Bush used racial slurs with her and was diagnosed paranoid and put on medication.
Hillary wants to essentially abolish the Second Amendment. If she gets to pick her judges, nothing you can do, folks. Although the Second Amendment people, maybe there is, I don't know.
Investigators are zeroing in on the possible origin point of at least 10 suspicious packages targeting top Democrats.
Just hours before the nationwide manhunt for a mail bomber came to an end, suspect Cesar Sayoc was spinning records at this Florida strip club.
Basically, I knew right off the get-go his political views.
Deborah Jaragian says Sayoc was a model employee when delivering pizzas for her, showing up on time, doing what was asked. But she says he shocked coworkers with extreme intolerance.
More than once, I went into the bathroom to cry because the vile garbage that he was spewing about the lesbian and gay community, the transgender community, African American, the Hispanic community was horrific.
Sayoc's long rap sheet dates back to the 90s. In 2002, he threatened to bomb a Florida power company, saying it would be worse than September 11th.
Live from the Trump event, the next president of the United States.
He also apparently attended President Trump's inauguration. He lived north of Miami and posted these selfies on social media.
It's new footage of the accused serial mail bomber at a Donald Trump rally. Muscles bulging, he's holding a CNN Sucks poster and chanting, "Tell the truth." Tell the truth! Tell the truth! The video of Cesar Sayoc was shot at a rally in Melbourne, Florida, just 1 month after President Trump's inauguration. It was taken by filmmaker Michael Moore for his documentary Fahrenheit 11/9. Moore says, in his opinion, Sayoc was overdosed on steroids. The filmmaker would later find himself featured on Cesar Sayoc's van with a target on his chest. Moore says the image has left him a bit shaken.
Police and FBI were seen inspecting Sayoc's van parked at an auto parts store about 14 miles from his home. The van's windows are plastered with pro-Trump political decals. As it was being driven away, a tarp covering it slipped away in the wind, exposing those decals. They include stickers expressing support for President Trump and photos of Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and other Democrats in the crosshairs of a gun sight. And that sticker targets CNN. Sayoc has a long criminal record going back to the 1990s, including making a bomb threat and threatening to throw a destructive device. His target then was the Florida Power and Light Utility, and he allegedly said it would be worse than 9/11. He declared bankruptcy in 2012, claiming he earned less than $8,000 a year and lived with his mother in this apartment building. The arrest came hours after the bombs were traced to a mail sorting center in Opa-locka near Miami.
Iman Kareem, who owns a security camera business, got to know Sayoc.
This gentleman was so far right-wing party line that it made me scared to really associate with him.
Kareem says just last week, Sayoc sent him a link to an article about the pipe bomb mailed to billionaire George Soros, a crime Sayoc now stands accused of.
I heard this on CNN and Fox, I didn't put two together. He sent me this.
These police mugshots show Sayoc over the years, from the first in 2002 to the latest last week.
After President Trump declared himself a nationalist at a rally, Duke tweeted gleefully, quote, "Trump embraces nationalism in a massive, jam-packed, 99.9% white venue in Houston, exclamation point." Zio journalists asked him if this is white nationalism. Of course, fundamentally, it is, as there is no ethnic or racial group in America more nationalist than white Americans. So what's the problem?
In Pittsburgh tonight, sorrow, determination, and defiance.
We will drive anti-Semitism and the hate of any people back to the basement on their computer and away from the open discussions and dialogues around this city, around this state, and around this country.
Yesterday's shooting rampage at the Tree of Life synagogue, say police, a hate crime, didn't just leave 11 dead, it left a city stunned. The accused, Robert Bowers, reportedly shouted, "All Jews must die," as he opened fire. Coming as it does on the heels of those pipe bombs, say police, sent by a Trump supporter to critics of Donald Trump, has Americans wondering, what has this country become? Say many, the hate on display evermore is fueled by regular polarizing language from the White House.
We have a demented, unhinged individual who is unfortunately President of the United States. And what he is setting as an example is simply, he's inflaming what always subliminally has been part of the American culture.
Meanwhile, Americans themselves seem to be losing faith that any of this can ever be turned around.
Not long before the deadly synagogue shooting, Robert Bowers logged on to Gab. He wrote, "I can't sit by and watch my people get slaughtered. Screw your optics, I'm going in."
The Pittsburgh shooting suspect's hatred of Jews merged with his hatred of immigrants to deadly results. He called migrants invaders, using the same dehumanizing language that's been saturating right-wing radio and TV.
This invading horde?
This is an invasion.
This is an invasion.
We may never know where the suspect heard these ideas or why he believed them, but we do know that the hate crime coincided with a rise in hateful language, from the InfoWars fringe to Fox's primetime lineup.
You have this invasion coming over every day.
Almost as soon as the migrant caravan formed in Central America.
It's a kind of invasion.
Fox News, talking heads, and President Trump made it out to be a major threat.
You do not have the right to come here. We did not invite you here. You cannot stay here.
Republican leaders echoed this line.
We have to treat this as an invasion.
And look at the online reactions.
This is an invasion. This is an act of attacking the United States sovereignty.
Scroll down on any of these videos on YouTube, and the fire was raging, with commenters screaming about an invading army, even though the migrants were 1,000 miles away and fleeing danger. One voice on Fox tried to point that out.
The president has called it an assault on the U.S. border. It is absolutely not.
But his audience rejected that. Shep Smith reading a tweet from a viewer.
Sorry, Shep, we are not falling for your fake story. This is an invasion.
Was the gunman watching? We may never know. But the right-wing climate was full of outrage. 6 days before the shooting, the suspect wrote, "I have noticed a change in people saying illegals that now say invaders. I like this." In the past 2 weeks, the word invasion was spouted on Fox more than 60 times. And on Fox Business, 75.
And the American people are seeing these visuals on television every day, and they think of it as an invasion.
Combine that with the claims that Democrats were funding the caravan.
Another leftist-funded operation.
Laura Ingraham saying leftists were aiding and abetting. Congressman Matt Gaetz sharing a video saying people were being paid to storm the U.S. border. Soros is a favorite boogeyman of the right. He's a billionaire donor, and he's Jewish. Dark corners of social media filled up with conspiracy theories, and it spilled onto TV.
From the Soros-occupied State Department.
This Lou Dobbs guest blaming the caravan on Soros, calling to mind an anti-Semitic trope about Jews secretly running the government. The suspect's final post on Gab blamed a Jewish refugee group for bringing in invaders. Now, the Washington Post arguing that the conspiracy theory about Soros and the caravan inspired the horror in Pittsburgh. And Adam Serwer, writing in The Atlantic, saying Trump's caravan hysteria led to this. The president's reaction? He tweeted on Monday, "This is an invasion of our country."
Police say a man who made threatening phone calls to a synagogue is now charged with a hate crime. Authorities arrested 39-year-old Dean West that you see right there on Thursday. West facing felony charges after police say he made the phone calls to the Central Avenue Synagogue in Highland Park. The Winthrop Harbor man remains in custody now in Lake County Jail.
The FBI says it received reports of more than 7,000 hate crimes in the U.S. last year. That's a 17% jump from the year before. 60% of the crimes are motivated by bias against race or ethnicity, 21% religion, and 16% sexual orientation.
This is frankly the third year in a row that we've seen a rise in the number of these hate crimes.
Civil rights groups say the rise in hate crimes can be linked to President Donald Trump's xenophobic rhetoric. 6 months into his presidency, white supremacists gathered in Charlottesville, Virginia, partly to celebrate Trump's win, and killed a counter-protester.
I put a lot of this at the feet of President Trump. We know that some of these hate crimes were actually committed in his name. In other words, the perpetrators used language and ideas that they took from things that Donald Trump has said, where he's demonized vulnerable populations.
And in the last month, after Trump said at political rallies he was proud to be a nationalist, violence around the country escalated to a new fervor. A man professing to be a Trump supporter sent a dozen pipe bombs to the president's political critics. And in Pittsburgh, a man claiming he wanted all Jews to die killed 11 people at a synagogue. Hundreds of locals protested when Trump visited to offer condolences.
But the fear is there will be more hate as the president continues to sow division across the country. The FBI says it is aggressively prosecuting hate crimes as a deterrent. But experts say perhaps most effective of all would be changing the tune of the White House.